All right, so welcome back. So this session we're going to do now is Q&A. I've invited a couple of Diamond members, Titanium members up to answer questions. So this is me practicing the principle of just do as little as I possibly can myself. So the questions that some of you guys submitted for me, I'm going to get these guys to answer. And because they've done it in their practices and they can share a little bit of their experiences, and I'll weigh in a bit as well. So to kick that off, Deepak, are you happy to just we'll just do a really quick introduction of who you are, how long you've been a member, kind of main changes you've made in your practices. That would be great.
Yeah, sure. Hi guys, my name is Deepak Oberoi. I've got two practices in South Manchester, one in Wilmslow, one in Cheadle Hulme. I've been a member for a long time, I think 7 years possibly.
Yeah, from the start, yeah.
Yeah, and we've transformed the practices quite drastically over the last 7 years, going from what we call a classic NHS type practice to like a private high-end opticians. And we've used a lot of the principles that Conor speaks about, pricing, stock, and slowly, it's a slow process. I reflect back and look at the years. It didn't happen on day one, but over the last few years, we've gradually moved into a place where business is going well, and we're the kind of business that we'd like to be as such.
Cool. Would you mind, just on the brand topic, Deepak, what's the biggest changes you've made to your brand, would you say, in the last 2 or 3 years? What kind of direction have you gone in?
So when we started off, we had a lot of eyewear brands such as Polo, Versace, etc. And soon realized that that's a battle we're going to lose because other people can play it a lot better than us. And we moved into kind of niche eyewear, and just it's an experience. People come and buy glasses from us, but what they enjoy is the process of doing so, and that's been one of the biggest changes as such.
Cool. Thank you very much, Deepak. Kelly, can you do a quick introduction, please? And just a little bit about what you've changed.
Hi, my name's Kelly Wright. I have a practice in South East London, and I joined OSA in 2016, I think. And yeah, I've put all the principles in place. We've changed the practice from looking like quite a bog standard practice to quite high-end practice. We have Specsavers right next door to us, so part of my journey with OSA was looking at how I can completely differentiate myself, and we've done that complete with chandeliers and all sorts, and we've changed all of our stock, and we're much more of a high-end practice now than what we were. A bit like Deepak, we had the brands that people come in asking for, but they're also the brands that they just want to try on and go straight online. So we're now much more into our niche eyewear brands, and trying to make ourselves as different as possible to most of the other practices locally.
Is there anything you pick out as things that made the biggest difference? 2 or 3 things?
Yeah, we've done so much. Probably the biggest thing was the refurbishment, because I put all the principles in place, but the practice didn't actually look like I wanted it to look, with all of the OSA principles. So the refurbishment was probably the biggest thing for us. But changing the pricing structures, changing the stock, they've all sort of gone hand in hand really to create what we've now got.
Cool, excellent. Thank you very much for that, Kelly. And last but not least, Shaukat.
Hi, it's Shaukat Patel. I've got 2 independent practices at the moment. I don't know why I said independent, but yeah, practices at the moment. One in Leicester and one in Peterborough. A little bit schizophrenic, but I still apply the principles of OSA in both practices, despite one being very NHS based and one slightly higher end. Likewise, it was I was trying to be everything to everybody when I first started my business, to the verge of almost never saying the word no to anybody and getting into trouble, almost legally sometimes, I think. So just trying to be everything to everybody, but due to the OSA principles, a lot better now.
Cool, thank you very much, Shaukat. So we'll kind of get into a couple of specifics with the questions that you guys have sent in. Most of these are questions that you submitted as kind of pre-conference homework. So I picked a few of those. So this is, and for just ease of microphones for now for this session, I'll just read out your questions. So this one's from Richie Dorr. Richie, are you here? You can give us a wave. Okay, thank you, Richie, for your question. So Richie asked this question to me. If you were to take over a practice with an industry average dispense value and average revenue, average turnover, would you slowly change your pricing and slowly change your frame offering to ease patients into it, or ease patients into high-end lenses and eyewear, or would you change everything quickly, kind of overnight? So I thought it'd be interesting to hear how these guys have done it in their practice. So I'll let you go first, Deepak, in terms of, so the changes you made from where you were to where you are, was it kind of fast and rapid, or was it slowly easing people in?
For me, it was definitely a slowly process. It was kind of making a small change, tweaking and reading the crowd and seeing how my clients react to it and how much they enjoyed. You know, because the higher value you can deliver, it's the higher price you can charge. And understanding that value, I think Conor said it earlier, is like the simple thing is the giving a cup of tea or the tea ceremony. Why is it such a big thing? Because it's a value-driven process. And you can almost charge a little more on your lenses and frames by adding those touch points as you keep going along. That could be from how the website looks, you know, how the practice smells. You know, in the practice that we have, very commonly people will comment on how nice it smells in there. And it's a key part of us making those touch points and then charging more for it. So I definitely would not move from, you know, industry averages, I don't know, 150. You know, wouldn't jump straight away, but gradually build into that and test higher waters. And you know, I'm at a phase where I'd like to, you know, reach higher end products furthermore than where I am. And some of the conversations I've had with you guys give me the courage to do so as well.
Yeah. So your average dispense value today is about what?
700.
700. Okay. So, and when you started, you were 150 or so. That was kind of your starting point, wasn't it?
Yeah, that's correct.
Can you remember the kind of order in which you did things? Was it service, critical, non-essential, stock, pricing, shop fit, branding, marketing? What kind of order?
Exactly that order, Conor. That's perfect.
Okay. All right. You're supposed to be doing the work here, not me. Okay. So that order then was service, critical, non-essentials.
So critical non-essentials. So,
Yeah.
you know, the easiest thing to do is first just declutter the place.
Yeah.
Take frames off show. So we had, I don't know, maybe 100 or so on show, and we immediately just took it to half that.
Yeah.
And it's scary, but it's the easy step to do. It doesn't cost anything else.
Well, that's probably the commonalities. There's a lot of things on that list that don't cost any money, or don't cost much money.
Yeah.
The service-related stuff, price guide, price presentation, training the team, focusing on service.
Yeah.
And those things also drive revenue so that you can then reinvest and do the things that cost a bit more. So thank you, Deepak. Kelly, can you answer the same thing? So did you do it quick or slow or in between? What was your approach?
I started off quite slowly. I think the first thing I did when I came back from a conference was to take out all the cheap stock. And we put it in a drawer, and my staff were really upset about it, but after a week they soon realised that they hadn't missed it at all. We've done things quite slowly. I had quite a large patient base that were well established, and they're a lot older, so they don't tend to like change, so we've had to sort of change things quite slowly. And then in 2018 I ripped all of the notes up that I had and did a refurb and completely changed everything. But we had all of the processes in place beforehand, so when we did the refurbishment, it all sort of just came quite naturally. But for us, that was probably the biggest step that we made. All of the other steps, they're all like baby steps. I think with the whole OSA process, it's all baby steps. And you sort of think you're not getting anywhere, but then you look back and you're like, actually, we've done huge amounts here. We've made real good ground on what we wanted to achieve. So. Cool.
Thank you very much, Kelly. Chocolate?
Yeah, but I'd a caveat to what Deepak said, that what could happen is that if you make things a little bit nicer for the patients and don't increase the price, we end up with a scenario that we were discussing earlier. We get all these declines keep coming back because they're getting tea and coffee and the price is exactly the same as it was before. So we have to work in tandem with the price increase, I think, and that's why I did. I mean, there was a few things, as Kelly said, was much easier to install straight away, tea and coffees, aesthetics of the place. Certain things were really difficult, and my staff found it very difficult, was bringing frames to the client and having nothing on display. That took a lot of time, but I genuinely wish I had done that earlier as well. So maybe not straight away, but I wished I'd worked at a much faster pace because all those small steps, but quicker small steps.
Yeah. So I did it fast, not overnight, but faster. And you did that as well, Deepak, with your second store. You launched with, final, here's everything.
I think once you've done it once, it gives you
it's confidence, isn't it?
confidence, I'd say.
Yeah. So for me, and you would probably some of you will have done it this way, but when I bought Jones & Co., I was in the mindset of, this is a new business. It's up to us to, make it the way we want to make it, rather than buying a business. It's a bit like if you buy a new house, you probably want to make it your own. And certainly if you buy a fixer-upper kind of practice, for me, let's go as quick as we can, but we don't want to lose the team. We need to bring the team along with us. We kind of need to bring as many of our ideal fit clients along with us. So you kind of want to be sensitive to that, but equally I would go kind of as quickly as we can. So we borrowed money, bought the business, borrowed enough to invest in stock. So instantly, overnight, we changed our stocks. We did that. We sorted out our pricing from the beginning, and we just started working. We didn't really have a team. It was me and Karina and Catherine. That was it, really. So we just started working on customer service and team meetings and building up that. And I think we did the refurbishment probably, by the time it was done, it was probably 12 to 18 months into our journey. And then once the refurbishment was done, that was a whole other learning phase to how now do we keep working in this way and figure all that out. So for us, it was stock straight away, start working on service straight away, keep building the team, and at 12, 18 months was refurbishment, just because we just wanted to get the lay of the land and figure out what we wanted to do, rather than dive in, do something, and then think, actually, we wish we'd done it another way. And then it takes a bit of time to plan and get it done and do what you really want. So yeah, thank you for that question, Richie. Appreciate it. Next question is from Rupal. Rupal, can you give us a wave? Hi, Rupal. Thanks for your questions. So we've got a couple here, actually. They're really on recruitment. So first question is, how do you recruit for attitude? And what kind of spark do you look for? And also any advice on keeping motivation levels high for longer serving members of the team? So we've all been dealing with recruitment things in recent times. Deepak, are you happy to share, when you're recruiting, you hired 3 new dispensing opticians recently. Are you happy to talk about what you're looking for when you're hiring, attitude-wise?
Yeah, I think the question's a great question because attitude's the key factor here. It's difficult to get the right attitude, but it's easy to get the right qualification. And that's what we did, was that we just laid out the process knowing exactly how candidates are going to enter into the process and what we're going to get out. And having those clear steps, both for you as the recruiter and the candidate, was really handy for us. So, I've done it 2 or 3 times, but one of the times I asked them to send in a video that's 30 or 60 seconds long, just talking about themselves. So it's nothing about how good they're at their job. It's a personality-driven process. It also does detract people. So the reality is the team I have, one person would be great on the video, the second would definitely not apply because of it. So just tweaking that as you go along. And like we did I asked them to write an essay or like a 1 page about what they like about, why they're interesting to me. And, and then having that process followed by, that genuinely has been just having a clear process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so basically you're doing little tests and you're seeing how people respond.
Yeah.
Other tests and things that we do, and so really our phone interview is the first step, which is informal, but really I'm just trying to get a vibe for, do I warm to this person? Do they sound good on the phone? Are they friendly, likable? That's kind of step 1, so because you're seeing them through the eyes that your clients will, so it's just, what am I thinking of them before I've met them? Then when they come in, do they like the team? Do they know how to win the team over? If they can do that, that's a real big plus. And we'll bring them over and show them our eyewear and show them a drawer of eyewear and we're looking for somebody to say, oh, wow, these are amazing. Oh, lovely. Must be nice to work with those frames. If they say, oh, yeah, no, I've worked with designer frames. So we're not telling them specifically, but we're kind of grading them on, we're just looking for that natural reaction, that spark in those types of ways. Kelly, have you any recruitment bits you would share? Have you done any recruitment recently?
I haven't recruited for a little while.
Well, what about answering how do you keep motivating longer term employees then?
Motivating the team. Ooh, yeah.
Has your team evolved, or has your team changed? How are they today versus how were they in 2016? And what did you do?
Awful lot of resistance, obviously, when I first joined OSA, because I wanted to change everything that we were doing with the practice. But my mantra has become, we'll try it for 30 days. That's what how I tend to make any changes within the practice. As I tell the team that we'll try it for a month, and if it doesn't work, then we'll change it back. I've never changed anything back. They've all been happy because they know that if they're not happy with something, we've got the option to change it back.
I think that's how drug dealers work as well. They just say, just try it for a bit, see what you think.
That's it.
Yeah.
Just try it.
Yeah.
So yeah, that works really quite well, and just sort of making sure that you recognise their wins. It's quite easy as a boss to get sort of a little bit tied up in when things go a little bit wrong, but I find that you have to take time out to sort of demonstrate to the team when they're doing things really well, and reward them as such, even if it's just a meal out or vouchers, just little incentives just to make them feel sort of valued and that they're doing the right thing.
Cool. Thank you very much. Shaukat, I know you're recruiting at the minute and
I know they
probably
say
struggling a little bit.
One parent is tragic, but to lose two is just damn careless. I've lost three opticians in about 6 months.
Yeah.
So it's been a real challenge. And Deepak said it's all about attitude. It's a matter of getting the right people on the bus, right, rather than just getting as many people on board. And exactly the example that you gave last week, I had two people. One was much more qualified than the other. But when I showed her the Limburgs and the NV, she was like, yeah, I've worked with these before. And she didn't want to look at them. Whereas the other was so excited, she picked them up and tried them on. Hence, that's the sort of enthusiasm I'm looking for. So we managed to recruit somebody for the Peterborough branch.
Very good.
Somebody at Leicester now.
Congratulations. And do you mind sharing how you found them in terms of advertising, or where did they come from?
On social media, and I think it was on the website Indeed.
Okay.
And it was just holistic questions, really, and they had to call in. I had to speak to them first of all on the phone, and just spoke about themselves and how enthusiastic and how well they sounded. And then when they came in, again, the first half an hour was just about themselves, rather than any technical skills, etc., and what their likes and the dislikes were. And then there was one just sort of basic competence questions, etc.
Yeah, cool. So I think, there is no exact proven process for recruiting where just do this and it'll work every time. It's like sometimes Indeed works, other times it'll be a Facebook message that you'd shared, other times it was a friend of one of the team that work for you. So I think it's just kind of being relentless when you're recruiting and trying everything that you can, and sometimes it's just timing as well, where you can try it this month and don't get anything, and if you take a bit of a rest and try it again in 2 months, something like that, you'll end up getting the right candidate. So I think it's harder and harder to recruit. But I think in terms of getting the right people as well, it really helps if you're clear about your brand from the beginning, and you have to sell it to them. So you want to, so if somebody works for Pret, in their mind, they don't, I imagine, work for just a sandwich shop. They see that video and they're like, we do this and we do that, and we've got this Joy of Pret thing, and we actually have to hit a target where we give so much of this away, and they enjoy doing that, they get a buzz of that. We do the homeless thing, we do these events, the company was sold and all the employees got a big bonus, and you want people to be really enthused about your brand, and I think that starts from when you're interviewing and when you're advertising, so that people don't see it as it's just a job in an opticians. They feel super excited. So that's where the things that Kelly talks about come in. If you can paint an exciting picture of, we go to trade fairs, we take you to Paris, we give you 2 pairs of glasses a year and sunglasses, we do this bonus, here's the way we work, here's what our clients say about us and all the reviews. and you just want them super excited about the prospect of working in your practice. So I think that if you show that to somebody and they're not responding, it's like, okay, well, they're not the right fit. But equally, if you don't show that to people, you could have somebody that is the right fit, but you don't sell it to them, and they might go somewhere else because they get a bit more money or whatever. Versus if you show them what this role can really offer them above and beyond money, it's I think that gets the best staff, and it also keeps them in the long term as well, I think. Just on the issue of staff as well, I think a lot of people at various points in their career have thought, I've got this one person, if that person goes, I'm screwed, because they're so important to the business. And I think sometimes that can be a hang-up, and sometimes it could even turn into a negative situation where I can't change anything because this person doesn't want to, and I can't do anything because I can't do anything to upset this person. But several of you guys have had key people, I've had key people leave at various times, and kind of the team's always gotten stronger. Deepak, are you happy to talk a wee bit about that? So your team's kind of, that was why you hired 3, is it's kind of a brand new team, but can you talk a bit about, did you have any of those fears, and then how quickly were you able to
Yeah, I think it's completely normal
hit the ground?
to think that the business hinges on one key person. And I had the similar problem towards the end of last year, where my key team member left and set up in business fairly close to me. And I was like, oh my God, what's going to happen? It's going to be a very turbulent time. But I just stayed in my own lane, refocused on what we can, and we're a much better and stronger business. And having those processes and belief that the business doesn't hinge on one person, it's a team effort. And that belief that, we can do this, and we're actually doing it a lot better than we did before that key team member was in place. It's just mindset, I think.
Yeah. So you went really within a month or two. You were doing record months with a brand new team that had never set foot in your practice before.
Yeah,
probably
absolutely.
Never worked with the kind of brands that you're working with, and I think that again, that's the value of knowing your brand. If you can say to somebody, so here's what we're all about, here's what we do, here's how we do it, here's the processes, and then you just put someone with the right attitude in there, and it's very quick that they can get up to speed, and when you have that clarity for them.
Yeah, absolutely. Just one other thing, Rupal, you were saying is we've just introduced something new to keep current team members enthused, is a happiness fund. And I just introduced it a few weeks ago, where they just have a 10 quid budget to spend every week on whatever they want. So they started off buying like all the junk food you can imagine, and this week it's been ice cubes. So we've got these amazing ice cubes that everyone's really excited about. But small things like that just can keep the guys feeling really energetic and focusing at work.
Mm-hmm. And it's amazing how all little things, how big a difference they make. And again, they're probably in the emotional category for your team. Like when we get, we've got pens made or little neon badges, and the team get excited by that, the clients get excited by it. We probably spent £100 on it. So sometimes it's the tiniest things that gets everybody all giddy and excited, because it's a reflection of this kind of place we are. So it's that fun vibe as well. Thank you, Deepak. Kelly, so actually, this question is from Chris McEnany. Hi, Chris. Thank you for your question. How do you get the team to focus on the small details without micromanaging them? And I know you guys are running, is it 4 practices? 3 practices, okay. And can you be in 2 places at once or not? You haven't figured that out yet? Okay. So that's kind of maybe looking at it from multiple practices. Deepak, you've got multiple practices. Shalkat, you do as well. If we go to Kelly first, though. So Kelly, you're in your practice. You've got 1 practice. How do you get your team to focus on the small details without micromanaging them?
I've got a set of processes that we work towards, which has become quite invaluable. Actually, it's almost like a handbook for how to work within the practice. So that works really quite well. Sorry, I had a bit of a mind blank. What was the question again?
Just how do you get them to focus on the small details, but without nitpicking and micromanaging them to death?
I probably do micromanage probably a little bit more than I should do because I am there all the time. I'm on the shop floor with them, so we sort of just pick up bits and pieces, but we make sure we have regular meetings, as regular as we can, just to sort of try and make sure that if anything's coming up that's bothering the team or something's not working, that we've got time to address that and put it right. That's probably the for us is what works really quite well, is just having those regular meetings, those regular check-ins. We have a board in our workshop, so if anyone's got any issues, we ask them to write it on the board. So if at the meeting they don't actually feel brave enough to sort of come out and say, right, well, this is not working or that's not working, it's been written on the board, and someone will bring it up so that we can address those things without it becoming a big major issue.
That's
but
a good strategy.
having a good set of instructions as to what you want your staff members to do with each particular thing. It's quite a big job putting a process folder together, but it pays dividends in the end, especially if you then get a new team member. So my Saturday girl has just become a full-time member of the team, and it's been really good because obviously on a Saturday there were certain things that she would do that we don't do during the week, and she's been able to take that folder away and go through it, and she sort of feels much more confident. She's not having to ask questions all the time because there's that folder to refer to with all the tips and...
Cool. I like the idea of writing things down. My mum and dad came to visit. This was in May when lockdown lifted, so they came over. And probably as a lot of couples do after 40 odd years of marriage, they bicker in a nice way. So, my mum's telling a story. We were out for dinner with Neil and Anne, and my dad said, it wasn't Neil and Anne, it was, Anne and Brian. No, you got that wrong. And, they start bickering over stupid stuff. So we were having dinner the first night, and my dad started to correct my mum, and she said, I'm going to get you a wee book just for this holiday, and any time you think of something that you think I'm saying is wrong, just write it in the book and we'll address it when we get home. So it's nice to have somewhere to direct that energy. And Shaukat, can you talk a little bit from the perspective of you're running two practices? How do you get your team to manage small details without micromanaging?
Okay, so initially it will be delegating responsibility for whatever needs to be done. So if it's the littlest thing that we think that can be easily done, we have to delegate it and make it perfectly clear and write it out for them that this is exactly your responsibility. After that, you train them repeatedly on that you have to do this particular thing. Thirdly, it'll be a threat of micromanaging them, which usually gets them really. And fourthly, I have had to do recently, it's not name and shame, but we're on like a WhatsApp group, social media. I do have to call certain people out that I was waiting for this, or this had to be done. This patient, I've got one of my staff members here, so I'm not going to mention any names. But that's the sort of 4 processes that I do to ensure that, because I hate micromanaging, I've got so many other things to do, and they hate me micromanaging them. So if I give them the responsibility and delegate the responsibility and then train them, because sometimes what I used to do in the beginning is expect them to understand at the same level as I did. So you'll tell them to do it and you think that's enough, I've told you to do it, but really they don't know how to do it. And for what we may think is completely simple is actually quite complex for some, because they've got lots of other things to do. So being very, very clear of what's needed and how it's to be done, and revisiting it completely. Just because they've done it for 4 or 5 weeks, that doesn't mean they're going to continue doing it afterwards. And sometimes you have to call it out as well, semi-publicly with your fellow in a nice way, and that usually works.
Yeah. So I to kind of give my £2 worth. So I think weekly team meetings, so regular communication, so we can talk about things constantly, because there's always going to be things missed, things going wrong. So communication channels, processes, and one of Catherine's key processes every week is like a double check. So she'll look at the diary, look back, look forward. She'll look at emails, inbox, outbox. She'll look at the order list. She's looking at where are all the problems, and she's double checking. Is there anything that's been missed that we can pick it up now and fix it before it blows up? So we're putting processes in place to kind of find those things. And then values, I think, as a way of training. So explaining your values. One of the values that we have is, being passionate and determined and getting results. So that can kind of connect to taking care of details. So always connecting it back to, this isn't me being difficult. This is me kind of trying to reflect this value that we all subscribe to. And trying to believe in them as well. I think sometimes if you have to say to somebody, you've missed this. It's underlying that is kind of the fact that you believe in that person, and I need to give you this feedback, and you need to know that I'm counting on you, and you're capable, and you're able to do this. And so I think trying to frame it in that way. And then for me, a big one to kind of avoid what Kelly's talking about is just so by not being in the practice and giving them that space to show that you trust them as well. Because otherwise, if you're constantly there, I can't help myself about seeing things and commenting on things. And sometimes you just need to realize, they've had the training, they've had this, they've had that. We have processes. We know how to, look after these details. If something goes wrong, it's not the end of the world because they'll learn. So just not physically being there helps me. So maybe that's a good thing if you're not in the practice all the time, or certainly not in both practice, in all three practices. And then I think combined that all works, because if you do micromanage all day long, that affects the culture. It kind of, rather than building people up, it can kind of make them lose confidence. So it is a balancing act, I think. But you need to just dig in and know when to step back and give them a bit of space and not nitpick things to death. So it's hard, though. So thank you for that, Chris. And thank you very much, Deepak and Kelly and Shaka. A quick round of applause for the guys. Thanks for your participation. Well done.